Hi everybody from Anchored, my name's Gill Steele, and let's go talk about the basics of fly fishing, and let's get started. So you're going to get into fly fishing and you've decided to take on this great new hobby, but you're asking yourself, what kind of pliers, what kind of tools, what kind of accessories do I need, and what should I buy? And also, as a beginner, what do I not need? That's really important too. So for the basics of fly fishing, there's a couple kind of essential tools that you're definitely going to want to have on hand as you're kind of on your fly fishing journey. One thing that you definitely need to have, and this is going to come in different shapes, different forms, but it's going to be something that you're going to have through your entire fly fishing career. And that is a pair of nippers or a pair of some kind of cutting device. Now, this can be really, really simple as basic nail clippers, you know, cut your nails with kind of thing, or you can get into ones which are aluminum, anodized, much more expensive, up in even the $100 range, but there's a whole bunch in between. But getting yourself a good solid pair of quality clippers, or just something you're not too worried about, is something you need to have in your pack. And once again, there can be other options that come with different tools too, but definitely get yourself a pair of cutters or nippers and have those on you at all times. The other really important thing, and for here in British Columbia especially, where we have a lot of barbless regulations, is a pair of pliers or hemostats. Depending on your application, whether you're using larger flies or bigger flies that have bigger barbs, or maybe you're just using something a little bit smaller to kind of get out smaller flies or pinch smaller barbs, a good set of hemostats or pliers or something also you want to have on you. These serve purposes not only for cutting, removing hooks, and debarbing flies as well. They also come great in a pinch if you need to repair something or fix something as well. A good Leatherman also in a lot of cases can work really well for that too. So moving on, what else you might need in your pack and what you might find yourself needing right from the get-go. Another thing would be some extra leaders, maybe some extra tippet material. Now this is going to be specific to what you're fishing exactly, so that might change a little bit over time or depending on the species that you are looking to go after, or even in the area or the region that you're fishing specifically. Other things to consider, and just creating kind of ease of use or a little bit more convenience when you're out on the water, would be something like a retractor or some sort of zinger. And these pair up really nicely with the nippers or the pliers, as you can adhere these to a vest and you can have access and drop it and not worry about it. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely dropped handfuls of hemostats in the water because they're not attached to anything. So a good retractor is another thing that's something to really think about when you're out on the water. As well, as we get into your fly fishing career, one thing that's crucial to have, and something that's probably underrated a little bit more, is a good quality pair of polarized sunglasses. Now, this doesn't matter if you're fly fishing at a super remote lake, or you're on a small river, or even if you're out in the ocean. A good pair of polarized glasses is something you're going to want to have out there with you. These reduce glare, they allow you to see fish, they allow you to see your fly line, and it just helps also for eye protection, which is really important nowadays. A good pair of polarized sunglasses can run you up pretty expensive, but you don't have to. There's a lot of really nice options that are available now to keep you safe on the water, but also seeing fish. So, as we move forward and we're starting to think about where we're going to go, say it's summertime and we're heading out there and we're looking for options for dry fly fishing and things like that, we're going to get our leaders out there, our tapered leaders in various lengths and various breaking strengths as well, and our tippet. But also maybe we want to kind of keep our flies floating and we want to kind of keep them presented well on the water. So a couple products that we also use, if you're using floating fly lines, would be either some dry shakes or some floating materials as well. So these come in usually like silicone gel or silicone powder. Also, just make sure you know what you're using it for, what the color is as well for the fly that you're using, and be sure to try and keep it away a lot of times from the hook points. Some people say that the fish don't actually like the smell, but who knows? That's up for the fish to decide. So that's kind of what we need kind of right off the hop. Now we can look at some other things that we can also consider as being extremely important when we're out on the water. Obviously, once you decide where you're going and you start to get a huge selection of flies, we're going to need a fly box. Now, fly boxes come in literally every shape, color, size, material, physical weight, slimness, but getting yourself a good box right off the get-go is something that you'll have for a very long time, and kind of a fun memory that you'll have as your first fly box ever. Things to consider when looking into fly boxes. Personally, I like ones that are clear. You can get really nice basic boxes. The downside to these though is that you can't see what's in them. So every time you go to get a box, you have to open it and be like, oh yeah, that's what's in there. A clear box you can quickly pick up, look at, and see exactly what you need. Fly boxes come in different sizes too. So big ones, little ones. Little ones are nice because they can fit usually in waiter pockets or get put out in behind a backpack or in a side pocket. Bigger ones, however, though, tend to be quite a bit thicker. So if you have flies that are larger in their profile, they're going to fit in a bigger box as well. Also keep in mind that if you're using hooks with trailers or articulated hooks, that they don't always sit in the foam ripple boxes or even the slotted foam. Sometimes just a basic container can work really well for those too. Let's go take a look at maybe some setups and maybe some nets as well. So getting into your first rod and reel, there's a lot of options that are available, and probably a big misconception with fly fishing is that it's crazy expensive right off the go. Nowadays, we have so many options and so many different levels of fly fishing gear out there that a beginner setup really doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. You can get a quality fly fishing rod and reel, multi-piece, either 2 pieces or 4 pieces or even more, and a reel and a fly line and your backing, and usually typically a leader on there as well, all encompassed at a package price. And these are usually great options for beginner fly anglers because you get your entire setup right off the go. You don't have to worry about picking the line or matching anything right as you're starting. These come pre-rigged, they're good to go. You might have to change from left to right hand retrieve, but these are something that are always a good option if you're starting out. And here, I mean, we've got rods and reels that start at $100 for the whole kit and go right up from there. It just gives you a really good entry point into the sport without having to break the bank or fully commit to something that maybe you're not fully ready to go for. So these combo kits come with all the appropriate lines on them and the setup specifically for usually floating lines, but they come fully rigged and ready to go. In this case, we have a floating line with backing on it. And the reason we have backing, which is a big question that we ask a lot, or get asked a lot actually, is why do I have backing? What's that other line that's in behind there? So your backing goes on first before the fly line. It goes right onto the reel itself, and it serves kind of a couple features. Your fly line is typically only 85 to 90 feet, so that's not enough if you got a big fish running. So adding backing on there, which is usually a Dacron material, behind the fly line will give you an additional 120 yards, 300 plus feet of line to work with. The other thing it does too, and it can take up a little bit more space on the reel and give you a slightly larger arbor, which can actually give you a better pickup. So it serves a couple purposes, but it is a necessary component of the fly fishing setup. Now, if you are going to go out and buy a combo, which there's lots of them that are readily available, you do want to make sure that the line that you're getting in your combo is actually appropriate for the fishery that you're going to take on. Now, as a new fly angler, you're probably going to start with a floating fly line. And the reason for that is it's easier to cast right off the go, and for most people, that's kind of their entry into it, is usually trout fishing. You can add sinking leaders and such, but it really is a good starting point. Fly lines come in a number of different shapes, also called tapers, and they also come in different rates of sinking if you are getting a sinking line, and of course floating. And then there's also combination fly lines as well. So you also want to make sure you talk to your tackle shop employee or your favorite person behind the counter there and just ask them and have a little chat about kind of what kind of fly lines you have out there. There's sinking tips, there's full sinking, there's fast sinking, there's slow sinking, there's hover tips, there's all sorts of different lines out there. Once again, all with different shapes and different weights. So it's good to have a little bit of a chat with your local employee at your fly shop and just kind of chat with them about what you're buying, why you're buying it, and for what application you're going for as well. That seems to be a really important thing and something that a lot of people as a new fly angler don't necessarily understand. Most fly lines are going to be weight forward, so you're going to have the majority of the grain weight in the front end of the line, as opposed to kind of the old school classic double taper, which has the same taper on both ends. Weight forward fly line is going to give you a lot better castability and turnover, and it's going to allow you to shoot, and as a new fly angler, you want as much help as you can get right off the go. Also, what we want to look at as well is just starting to think about going back to our leaders and our tippet material as well. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate tippets and the appropriate leaders for what you're fishing. You can also buy sinking leaders or fluorocarbon leaders, which also sink, which is different from monofilament. And getting in touch with all these different little things is part of the learning process as a new fly angler. So, you've got a bunch of your tools, you've got a bunch of your accessories and things like that. What are some other things that we can think about? Well, you might get out there and you might think about getting into a net or something to really be able to keep that fish wet, keep it in the water, and make sure that we're giving the fish the best chance to survive after catching it. Nets come in all different lengths, they come in different shapes, they come in different weights. You can get different netting material as well. Once again, depending on your application, if you're in a lake, you might want a big long net to be able to scoop and to be able to reach. But on the other hand, if you're just fishing in the streams and you want to be able to pack it or have it put away somewhere, a shorter handled net tends to be better. I invested in a nice net a bunch of years ago, and honestly, it's a nice, not only thing to have on you, but it's really something that you do cherish, and as a new fly angler, it's something that you want to kind of hold with you and keep with you as well. A net, especially if you're a new angler fishing for trout, a net gives you a good opportunity to prevent fish from getting up on the rocks. It'll help kind of keep your fishing not only in the water, but it'll kind of keep your catch rate going on. A lot of fish are lost kind of right at that key crucial moments as you're trying to land them. So a net is a good consideration. Not something that you might need right away, but something to definitely think about down the road. So that's kind of the basics, and that's kind of what you need just getting into it. One thing I will say is when you're getting into fly fishing, literally jump in. There's going to be lots of questions. There's going to be lots of kind of unsureness, but you know what? The only way to learn is really kind of getting, quote unquote, your feet wet. So it's really important to do that. One tip I will say for a new fly angler is when you're going to buy flies, don't go out and buy $1,000 worth of flies. That's not going to do you any good at all. Pick where you want to go. Say, I have this weekend, this is what I want to do. Talk to your local shop and say, hey, what do I need for this fishery specifically? They'll give you maybe half a dozen flies that you're going to know is going to work for that time of year, for that water, and for the species that you're fishing, and you can learn and build that way. After a period of time, those fly boxes are going to be full, and you're going to understand what flies are in there and why you're using them. That's probably my biggest tip, and something that we encounter all the time in here is people want to go and fill a fly box full, brand new angler. Don't do that. Be meticulous. Make sure you're understanding what flies you're using, and you will learn a lot faster that way. And biggest thing, don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to reach out to your local shops and just have a chat with them. We're friendly people, we like to talk, we love to fish, so we want to be there and we want to talk to you about it and help you, because nothing makes us more happy than watching you catch a fish. So hopefully that was helpful, and all those new fly anglers that are out there, keep with it, keep casting, get your lines wet, and you will catch a fish.